When the world is coming to an end, a dysfunctional family with daddy issues is our only hope. On this episode of Moving Panels, we discuss Season 1 of The Umbrella Academy. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. I'm your host, Laramy Wells, and joining me today in the co-host chair, she's got the power of words and insight that can sometimes cause a symphony of discussions. My wife, Bethany Wells.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What an intro.
Just wait for yours.
And the other voice you hear, if he ever disappears mid-discussion, don't worry, he's not time traveling. He's just gone to find more coffee. It's our dapper southern gent. Please welcome Blake Fowler.
I win.
Hold on. Bethany had just a litany of flowery words and descriptions, and I disappear? Is that where I am?
He knows who he has to live with every single day.
Okay, that's true. We'd hate for Laramy to disappear, so that's good. Let him go ahead and use me how he needs to.
All right, so this is one that we've actually been wanting to do for a while, and we finally just said, hey, let's just go ahead and do it. And so here we are talking about Season 1 of The Umbrella Academy. So I know Bethany has read the comic.
Yes.
Blake, you have not, correct?
I have not read the comic,
Okay.
no.
But we've all seen the series, obviously. The series originally was released on Netflix back on February 15th, 2019. It was 10 episodes. It was one of those where they just released all 10 episodes.
I miss those days.
Oh,
Me
no,
too.
see, I
Welcome
like
back.
the week to week.
No, I want to sit down and
week to
watch
week.
it. I want to lose myself for a
Yep.
day.
I want to forget the tears in reality exist and just binge.
See, I don't mind a binge on a rewatch, but on a new show, I like the week to week.
It depends on the show, but for the most part, I like to sit and just watch.
Inject that directly into my veins, right, Bethany? Like,
Absolutely.
just all
Make
at
me
once.
numb to everything.
There you go. Sorry, Laramie.
I mean, it's fine.
Outvoted on this one.
It's fine. I get that I'm older, and so I still remember television. And
Hey,
I remember television, and I remember it being terrible.
no, I love.
Laramie's like, you millennials only watch on your iPads. you don't know what TV is.
I loved watching things week to week, and then like discussing them with friends or coworkers. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? And now you don't get that.
Yeah,
But
you do. You
slightly
get
off
to, like, for
what's that?
2 weeks after it comes out, you get to say, like,
Yeah, so
what
they-
episode are you on?
And
There
if
it
they're
is.
not on an episode you're on, you can't talk about it.
Until they do.
A little off topic. What was the first show y'all remember binging? Do you remember what you binged the first time?
It was Arrested Development.
Oh, okay.
It
That's
was
not
like
bad.
after the show was long
Yeah, after it was
canceled.
already on.
And it was like
yeah.
it was back actually, like, Hulu was completely free. There were just ads.
What?
Yeah, it was like the super early days of Hulu, like 2007, 2008. And I got on there and I watched all of Arrested Development, and I was just like, this is amazing.
Nice. Yeah. I was The Office and House of Cards kind of
Nice.
at the same time. Was binging those.
So you're talking about streaming. Like, what's the first?
Yeah, stream binging. Yeah, that's.
Because I mean, I've been
Not going to the library and checking.
I
them
know,
out.
I know you've got like
I've been shows
every
by-
season of everything.
Yeah,
Laramie can
I've been
binge it
shows
anytime you
watching
want.
them on DVD where you just.
So yeah, stream binging. For us young whippersnappers, we binge on streaming.
And what was the first one that I binged? I don't know if I don't know. I really don't.
Could it have been like Supernatural? Because you would always watch those, like,
Maybe.
you would buy the
Yeah.
season
Okay.
as they were released on Black Friday.
Well, but again, we're talking streaming because I watched those on DVD. So what was the first one I watched streaming?
I don't know, baby.
I know I watched Friends, but that was very recently. Like that was within the last couple of years.
Still have never seen Friends. I don't. Yeah, it's not.
I was about to call him a nerd alert, but
I'm not terribly interested.
Well,
sorry.
I mean,
It's
I
not for me.
originally watched it on television
I did
where I had to
too.
wait week to week. like a
remember
normal
turning
person.
the knobs of my TV.
Hey, look, I grew up with one of those console TVs, the ones that were like a piece of furniture.
We had one up until I was like 5 or 6. I remember it. Yeah.
And we had the VCR where the remote was actually attached by a cord.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't have that, but my granny, until she died, had a TV with like the antenna with aluminum foil stuck to the end on it.
Yep.
And she died in 2005, so it was long past when she should have.
I mean, everything that's old is new again. We just bought one of those old tube TVs, like the big block things, to turn it into a cat hut. So we're painting it black, making it like a haunted house cat hut for the cats.
I was to say, I didn't think they sold those. So.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't work. We took the tube to the dump, and the guy was like, "It's gonna be $30 to dump that. We can't take that here." So, nice little bird walk for us there. There we go. Let's get back to.
All
right. So back to the Umbrella Academy.
Back under the umbrella. Here we go.
So these 10 episodes are loosely based off of the 6 issues of the Umbrella Academy comic that is titled collectively The Apocalypse Suite. These 6 issues ranged from the first issue coming out September 14th of 2007, and then the last issue coming out February 20th of 2008. These are Dark Horse comics. Which, I mean, look, if you know comics as well as I do, and I'm sure Blake does too, this is one of those comic books that if you were to just read the comic, you wouldn't have had to have been told it was Dark Horse. Like, you knew immediately it was Dark Horse.
It's a very on-brand thing for Dark Horse.
It was created and written by Gerard Way, and if anyone is thinking, I know that name, that's because he's the lead singer of My Chemical Romance.
One of my favorite bands, yes.
Really?
Yeah, I love MCR.
That's great.
My gosh. Yeah, Bethany's like, no thanks.
No, I don't dislike their music. I just couldn't tell you which song is theirs.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is the one that I'm sure in social media you've seen where people said that they could trigger a certain group of fans by playing one note, and they hit that one note, and any My Chemical Romance fan knows immediately what song that is. You know what I'm talking about, Blake?
I haven't seen that. I wish you had it queued up. We should have done it like here live on the podcast real quick. But I'd imagine it's either Helena or Ghost of You, Black Parade, probably one of their 3 of their bigger ones there. I literally have chicken skin right now, just seriously from that one note. No joke. You play that in a crowd of mostly 25 to 35, you're going to get a group of people singing in unison the opening of that song.
Oh, yeah.
Without question.
Yeah, I will say I'm not a huge My Chemical Romance fan, but I know that song.
Everybody knows that song. I know that song. Yeah.
So I will be honest, I did not know this until I started looking into it. Like, I saw the name Gerard Way. I know My Chemical Romance, but I did not know that was who he was until I looked into it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Laramy, you don't strike me as a scene kid, first of all, so that's
you
forgivable.
You didn't have that emo haircut?
No.
I know. I did own a couple of pair of Jinko jeans back in the day, not to brag. But yeah, he, again, obviously I love his music, but I also love his artistry. So I've got a couple of different prints with his artwork. I know he does a little bit of that on the side along with the writing. And then a couple of my Batman black and white statues are actually Gerard Way designed.
Oh, okay.
So just as an artist as a whole, phenomenal artist.
Yeah, he's done another comic series that called The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, which I will be honest, I've never heard of. So that'll be one I will.
I was like, heard of it, one I haven't read, not one that exactly piqued my interest per se.
Yeah.
But yeah, he stays busy for lack of a better term.
Definitely. I didn't know he was an artist because he didn't illustrate the comic. The comic is illustrated by Gabriel Ba. So so I'm not familiar with his work until Umbrella Academy.
His just a little aside, his Batman black and white statue design is probably my favorite of all the ones that I own or that have been done in general. It's very it's a different take on Batman. So anybody out there want to look it up, check it out. It's a very cool design.
So I did discover that Universal actually optioned Umbrella Academy to be a film a few years ago. That would have been interesting to try to.
Yeah, why is that? Well, I can tell why that has not happened.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it on the podcast all the time about how comics need to be series in order to fully tell the story. And this is definitely one, especially after the way this show tells the story.
Right.
It's like you wouldn't be able to do that in two and a half hours.
I feel that way with a lot of books. Like, even not just comics, but books in general. There's so much. That's why I'm kind of excited about them bringing the Harry Potter series into a series, because there was so much that was left out of the movies that just made it so much better. And so I'm super excited about that. And so, yeah, I agree.
It's tough to cover all those little minute details that make a book or a graphic novel enjoyable on film.
Right.
But with a TV series, you get a little more opportunity to make those things happen.
You get 10 hours to tell the story as opposed to 2 to 3 hours.
There it is.
Yeah, which we'll get into this a little bit later when we talk about how this connects with the comics. But as always, we're going to start with the characters. So I will run through them, and then we can go back and talk in more detail. So I put the Hargreeves in order. So we're going to start off with number 1, Luther Hargreeves, a.k.a. Space Boy, played by Tom Hopper, who, were y'all aware he's British?
I did not.
I did not know that. Great. Of course, like all British actors have great American accents. Why do no American actors have great British
and then Dick Van Dyke.
Oh, God.
Who can't do a British accent.
R.I.P. question?
No.
He's not with us, is he?
No.
He's still alive?
Dick Van Dyke.
Oh, no, he's still alive. He was just on The Masked Singer.
How?
Yeah, he was a contestant on The Masked Singer like
a
couple of seasons ago.
I was like, he's got to be filled with embalming fluid at this point in time.
No, he's still just like as delightful as ever. I just adore it.
All right, moving on.
Sorry.
Then we got
Sorry, Tom Hopper.
We got number 2.
Yeah, sorry, Tom.
Number 2, Diego, aka the Kraken, although he's never called that in the.
Because his powers in the comic are different from the show.
And like I said, we can get into that in a minute. But he's played by David Castaneda. Then we've got number 3, Allison, aka the Rumor, played by Emmy Raver Lampman. Number 4, Klaus, aka the Seance, played by Robert Sheehan. Number 5,
the number
5.
Number 5, yeah.
aka the Boy, played by Aidan Gallagher, who our daughter immediately recognized from the Nickelodeon show
Nicky, Ricky, Dickie, and Dawn.
Yes, whichever order those names go in.
I don't understand anything anyone is saying right now.
So there's this weird show on Nickelodeon, and it's like, what's 4? Quadruplets. And their names are
Math is,
Nicky, Ricky, Dickie, and Dawn. And he is one of
he's
the
one
he's
of the
not
boys.
Dawn.
Yeah.
But he's either Nicky, Ricky, or Dickie.
Why did Dawn's parents hate them not to
Dawn is girl.
Rhyming? Yeah, like why? Why would you not name your child
Vicky?
The rhyming word?
Like Vicky. Yeah, Vicky.
Nicky, Ricky, Dickie, and Vicky. Oh, that works too, actually.
That is great. I was going to wait to the end to say this, but you're both doing phenomenal at pronouncing all these names, including the tongue twisters.
Then we got number 6, Ben, a.k.a. the Horror, played by Justin H. Min. Then number 7, Vanya, a.k.a. the White Violin, who was Ellen Page at the time.
They're now Elliot Page.
Ellen is now Elliot Page. Then we've got Cha-Cha and Hazel, the assassins that are involved in After 5 and all that, played respectively by Mary J. Blige and Cameron Britton. And then we've got Leonard Peabody, or Harold Jenkins, played by John Magaro. Then, look, we give all the credit to Andy Serkis, so I got to give credit to Adam Godley, who played Pogo. Mm-hmm. And we've got Mom, or Grace, played by Jordan Claire Robbins. And finally, Reginald Hargreaves, a.k.a. the Monocle, played by Calm Fior. So there we go. So we've got all of these characters. My question, as always, is who do you want to see again? And who do you wish would be sliced across the neck with a violin bow?
Yeah, well, okay. So way to jump the shark there, Laramy, because that was a moment I didn't see coming.
It was so upsetting.
Yeah. Bethany, I'll let you take the lead here. Do you want to go with who do you want to never see?
Who do I want to?
Who do you want sliced across the neck?
So, the person my two favorite of the Hargreaves children have to be Allison and Klaus. I love their chemistry together, but also I enjoyed their arc throughout the story. Mm-hmm. Allison really struggles with her power. It's so much power. She can get anything she wants.
Yeah.
But it's at the expense of she loses everything because of it. Mm-hmm, and she is struggling with that throughout the show. She uses her power the least because of all that she has lost.
Well, and in the comic, in those 6 issues, she doesn't use it at all. Well, she uses it in like the flashbacks when they were a kid at the beginning with the Eiffel Tower. But yeah, it's even brought up. Luther actually says to her, "I haven't seen you use your powers."
Yeah,
and she,
and then when she goes to use them, she gets the slash across the throat from Vanya.
I also feel like Klaus has such an interesting arc. Like, I've seen the first season all the way through already. I'd seen the second season. So I've kind of seen who he becomes after he time travels to Vietnam. But seeing him at the beginning where he is like struggling with his addictions and just kind of how it's played as the butt of the joke, but knowing where it comes later, that actor, what was his name again? Robert Sheehan. He does such a great job of playing that character. He's lovable. You care about him. And then when you see him go through that heartbreak, you're invested in that character already. So I love the two of them together. Can I get rid of the bad guy? I'll just get rid of him. If it weren't for him, they wouldn't have had such a bad...
Oh, you're talking about Harold Jenkins?
Harold Jenkins, quote unquote.
Leonard
Peabody.
That's the name he chose. That's his fake name. Leonard Peabody.
They did name an award after Peabody,
let's be Nerdy McNerdface. That's gonna be my new name.
Well, and of course he is loosely based off of a character called the Conductor.
So loosely based
from the comic. Yeah, really, the Conductor is just he's the conductor of this symphony, which are all made up of bad guys. This
murderers
this isn't like the show where it's a official symphony. This is
they want to bring about the end of the world through song.
And so they coerce Vanya. Well, not really in the comic. In the comic, they try to get her. She says no. And then because of the way that her siblings treat her, she then goes back to them.
But then they pretty much kill her.
Yeah, they put her through a machine. And it's in the machine that she becomes
insane,
pure white. Yeah. And yes, she does snap. She then kills the Conductor the same way Vanya kills Leonard. Well, not the same way. Because in the show, of course, when she finds out what Leonard's done to her, there has this Matilda moment where everything in the room's spinning around, but then she drives it all into his chest. In the comic, she just wakes up from her surgery that made her all white, and then she just strikes a bow and
he explodes
in half. It splits him in half. And it's
sounds like I got to read the comic.
It's
apparently,
very graphic. If you want, we can even talk about how she kills Pogo in the comic.
See, this is all going to be new information for me. I'm willing to talk about it. I don't mind spoilers at all. The trauma that I will have to relive after this will be very real. But we're going to talk about it.
So I will say the death with Pogo in the show is
It's so much more emotional.
Yeah, it's more emotional. It's better for
Right.
the development of the story. Because Vanya is not as complex in the comic as she is.
Well, I will say there's not a lot of shock value in his death. Like, you kind of see that building on
Yeah.
the TV show. Like, you see something bad is about to happen,
Yeah.
and you can kind of infer what it is. But it was very emotional.
Well, in the comic, what happens is Vanya comes with the orchestra to the Umbrella Academy house. It doesn't play out the same way it does in the show. All she does is walks up, she tells them to start playing, and then she plucks one string and the entire house explodes. But it's still standing. And that you see Pogo come up to a window, and I think all he says is Vanya. And she looks up and says I forgot what she says to him, but she says something to him, and then she strikes another chord, and his brains blow out the back of his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like Pogo death in Umbrella Academy comic.
Yeah.
It's
let's
very
look at
upsetting.
this.
Well, while you're looking that up, I'll go.
Oh no!
There you go.
Oh,
I'll go ahead and
Okay.
state mine. So
not safe for work one right there.
So yeah, the one I'm gonna base this entirely off of season 1. But the character I would want to see more of and have maybe more of a development and whatnot based off of season 1, honestly, is Ben.
Yeah.
I wanted a little bit more now, which is funny because Ben is not in the comic other than in the flashbacks when they're kids.
So he's not using Klaus as
No.
a vessel in the comic.
No.
not
Okay.
not in the
Klaus is
Apocalypse
not the
suite.
lovable drug addict that we all.
Well, he is
we
a
all
drug
care about.
addict in the.
He is,
Yeah.
but he's not the lovable drug
He's
addict.
not lovable, Laramy.
No, and he doesn't use his ability to talk to the dead as much in the comic.
No.
He more uses his ability, like, for instance, telekinesis. So I'll go ahead and say this. I know we're going to talk a lot more about the comic here because it is such a character-driven story.
Right.
It's a very predictable plot. It's the characters that make the story interesting.
Okay.
So in the comic, when they stop Vanya at the end, which I can talk about that a little later, but I'll just say when they stop her at the end, she then is telling them, "You're too late," and they realize a chunk of the moon is headed for them. And then there's a panel that just says "boom," like in small letters. It's like a white panel, and just in small letters it says "boom."
Okay.
But then when you go to the next page, you find out that Klaus has stopped the 14-ton or whatever they said, 14,000 ton chunk of moon using telekinesis, which is a power he has in the comic, but doesn't have on the show. About one of the only things that I liked not the only thing I liked about Klaus, but of connecting it to the comic is when he goes to, I guess what you're to perceive as heaven, and he talks to the little girl who is supposedly God, and she says, "I don't like you." Like, like, you have to go back. "I don't like you." That's actually from the comic. So in the comic, it's implied that Klaus cannot die simply because God doesn't like him.
God doesn't like Klaus.
So he's essentially immortal.
Just not that he can't be killed. He could be, but he just is not accepted.
God would just send him right back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, I haven't read that. 40,000 tons. That was it. 40,000 tons is what they said.
Much heavier. Much heavier.
So yeah. And I'm pretty sure his character can fly. They all fly, but it's because
they've got like a belt.
Yeah, these levitator belts that Hargreeves invented for them to use. But I'm actually pretty sure Klaus can fly on his own in the comic.
Good for Klaus.
And I would say the one I would want to see less of, I'm gonna be honest, is Diego.
He's a little,
and his comic book character is not that interesting.
He has a romantic relationship with Vanya. in the comic.
Well,
In the
not
comic?
in this.
Oh, okay.
In this story, though.
Kind of like the reason she gets him to kind of back off of her is she tells him like, I love you, and then he can't kill her.
I mean, that seems a little manipulative on Vanya's
Well,
part.
she
for
was
being
evil.
honest.
At that
yeah,
point.
Vanya
Yeah.
in the comic is
The kids would call that gaslighting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once-
The adults would too.
Okay, just making sure.
yeah. Once Vanya has her powers unleashed in the comic, she is pure evil. Like there is no redeeming quality about her like there is in the show. Like she is pure evil.
Okay.
She's wanting to bring about the apocalypse. She
Finds joy in it.
Yeah. But Diego, he's called the Kraken in the comic because his power in the comic book is that he can hold his breath indefinitely.
Just call him the scuba diver then. Why the Kraken?
Yeah.
That doesn't.
But that's his power. The knife throwing in the comic is just something that he's just skilled at. Whereas in
Okay.
the show, it's
can,
implied
like, bend it
that
around
his
stuff
power
and,
is to
like,
control the knives.
He's like James McAvoy and Wanted
Yeah.
all of a sudden.
Yeah, bending the bullets.
Yeah. Okay, that's, I mean, like, cool, I guess. I don't know.
It's fine.
Yeah, Gerard is kind of not making me a fan with the way he's naming these people. So,
You know.
Yeah.
but that's his artistic choice.
So
now
whatever.
Blake gets to choose
Yeah.
his favorites
So
and who
who's
he
yours,
wants to
Blake?
murder.
Yeah, y'all have like taken a couple of like
That's
my
fine.
starters here. I'm gonna go first with the person I'd like to see more of, and y'all didn't take this one. Five. I like Five's personality.
gosh,
I
Five
like
is
the,
awesome.
The sarcasm and the wit and the attitude.
The actor's
Aidan
like
Gallagher.
13, and he looks like a 60-year-old
Like-
man. Like he walks
Yeah.
like one.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Which
Whoever
he's supposed
he is,
to
tricky.
he's supposed to be 10 in the
Tricky
comic.
Ricky, Nicky, Vixen, whatever his name is. He did
Dasher,
a great,
Dancer, Prancer,
great
Vixen.
job. Yeah, he was wonderful. So I would. That's the only reason I really watched any of the other two seasons because I wanted to see more Five.
He's
if we're being
so
like, just
good.
completely honest,
Like even the
He's
way
very
he
good.
walks, like he walks like a
Yeah.
person who has had to compensate for back pain,
Yep.
which is so weird.
I was like, his entire character
Yeah,
was done
so well.
flawlessly.
Yeah.
Who I could do with seeing less of is Vanya. I could not stand Vanya's character from the moment
So
they showed up on screen
mopey
until
and
the
weepy.
end of the episode. Yes,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
a lot of self-loathing, a lot of woe is me, and then once Vanya finds out that she's got all these powers, it's like, oh, I could do something to help, but instead I'm not.
I'm just gonna
to.
kill everybody.
Yeah,
actually,
I'm
instead.
just gonna murder the planet.
And then like I'm gonna think I killed my sister. And
right.
I mean, I get that she was being manipulated, but at the same time, you're an adult. Take a moment and go, hey,
Yeah.
I need to own up to my actions. Yes, it was
Yeah.
an accident, but I still did it. And
Well, but I think that's what she was doing when she goes to the house and talks to Luther.
ugh.
Is she is showing remorse. She is showing, but then Luther decides, I'm going to squeeze you until you pass out and then throw you in this vault, which sets her off.
And it's so well.
Yeah, it blew the whole house, brought the whole house down.
Literally.
On Grace too. Poor Grace.
Oh,
Just standing there in the window
Poor
looking. Didn't get her
mom.
brains blown out, but
yeah.
yeah, she just still standing in the window. I wonder if that's a callback to the comic then, with Grace in the window instead of Pogo. You said Pogo, the
Yeah.
scene. He's like
Yeah.
in the window there.
Yeah, Mom is a little different in the comic.
yeah, in the comic,
It's almost
she
like
is,
she's not a robot. She's just had all of her parts replaced by robotic pieces.
Well, it's more
she
like
still has organs.
Yeah, she
Is it
she has exposed.
Jude Law and Repo Man all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's like
kinda.
she's more mannequin looking.
Okay.
In the comic, she doesn't look human. When we're first introduced to her, she doesn't even have arms. Because she says that
They're
they hurt.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, they're uncomfortable.
That's why I think she's actually a human. She's just had so many pieces of her replaced by robotic pieces to keep her alive by Hargreeves.
I mean, It
They
could
don't
be,
explain
yeah.
it. It's just that's how I interpreted it.
Well, because he.
Yeah, speaking of which, I could also do with less with Reginald. Sorry. I should throw that in there, too. Even though we saw very little of him, I could still do with less of him.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah, you only really get him in the flashbacks. We don't have, obviously, because we talked about already, Klaus doesn't really talk to Ghost in the comic all that much, other than in the flashbacks. Like, he talks to an engineer for the Eiffel Tower and all that.
He becomes Reginald Hargreaves.
Yeah,
at
but
the
that's
end.
he doesn't. It's not any type of possession or whatnot. He just dresses up as Reginald and uses that to kind of
That's
distract
right.
and fool Vanya.
That's right.
Okay.
But
Yeah, and like I said, I liked Klaus. So Klaus would have been one of mine that I wanted to see more of. Bethany,
Yeah.
You're right. His story arc was really good. Is Luther kind of like under the radar, vanilla, just
He
character
is
for
just the
everybody?
most
like you
basic.
you want to like him,
Yeah.
but he doesn't really do anything to make you
No.
really root for him.
He just anytime he has the opportunity to do something interesting, he doesn't.
Right.
He takes
Or he
like,
makes the matter
brute,
worse.
Yeah, he takes the brute force way out of it, and it does make matter worse.
I mean, he does have ape DNA in him, Bethany. Okay, he can't help that.
So
okay?
I
That's all he knows.
think he would have done it without the ape DNA. Pogo had much more sense than he ever did.
Fair
well,
point.
Pogo was a chimpanzee. That's completely different
Yeah.
species.
My bad.
So, but I will tell you,
We're gonna get canceled from the ape community now because Bethany's.
Look,
in the comic, he is not injected with ape DNA. His body is actually replaced with the body of a gorilla.
It's like brain is put into
No,
the body.
his
no,
head.
his head is normal. His body
head-
is
yeah.
gorilla.
That's what they do in the comics.
And I'll be honest, I hate the way he looks in the show, and I get like that was pretty much the best they could do to make it seem realistic.
But it kind of looks like he's in a
But
suit.
Sure.
he looks like
He's just in a bodysuit.
he
He's
is,
100%
and you
a
can
bodysuit.
tell.
Well, but what I'm saying in the comic, it does because the neck hole is bigger than his neck. And so you see like what looks like the start of his body, which is wearing like a striped shirt. And so it even in the comic, it looks like he's just inside of a gorilla suit instead of.
So they literally have him in a gorilla suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Midsummer. Sorry, I keep making other movie references.
But no. What they did in the comic was in order to, after an incident goes wrong, in order to save his life, it's not the injecting him. It is just removing his head and putting it on the head of a. And I think they even say it's like an alien gorilla. Like it's not a. Yeah.
What is an alien gorilla? Why didn't Ted Williams think of this? His head's sitting frozen in a jar somewhere. Could have been a gorilla.
But let's see. Who else did we not talk about? I did want to
Cha-Cha and
mention.
Hazel.
So I did want to mention about 5. Although it's not revealed in this run for this story, the commission is not called the commission in the comics. They have a very Latin type name.
Temps Aeternalis.
There you go. Whatever that
Great.
might actually.
Everyone knows exactly what that means, Bethany.
I do.
What is it? You speak Latin?
I took Latin in high school.
What does it say?
Like time, eternal time.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Jeez. Good job.
But what?
Coach is impressed.
Okay.
But instead of doing what I think was just a fine explanation of that, 5 just had to learn how to survive on his own, so he became good at what he does, and then he spent X number of years as an assassin. What they eventually talk about in the comic is that I'll call him the commission just because it's easier to understand who I'm talking about.
And pronounce.
They messed with they altered his DNA and actually integrated the DNA of famous serial killers.
That's actually kind of cool in a very bad way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That's kind of that's a
the
cool
theme,
little plot point.
That's the theme for this entire comic book. Cool
Yeah, I
in a
agree.
very
Okay.
bad way.
Bad way.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Ben, his powers are pretty much the same with the tentacles.
Terrifying.
protruding from
Why
his
wasn't
body.
he called the Kraken?
He was
had
called
more
the
Kraken-y
Horror.
than-
Yeah, he was called the Horror,
Yeah.
which in the comic, once you see, like I said, Ben's not in this story, but once you're introduced to Ben as the kind of full-grown version of Ben, he actually is like, he looks like the Grim Reaper.
That's cool.
Which they allude to in the show. By the first time you're introduced to him, he's got the hood up and he's kind of, you can't see his face. Like that's the closest they come to what he actually looks like in the comic. But yeah, we got Cha-Cha and Hazel, which again, also not in this story. They don't appear until the Dallas storyline, which is what season 2 is based on.
But you got Mary J. Blige playing Cha-Cha. And then Hazel is played by the guy who played Eddie Kemper in Mindhunter.
Oh, okay.
That's Edmund Kemper?
Yeah.
First of all, one of the greatest performances ever. But
So good. And it's the same guy.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Same dude. Very cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Of course, I haven't watched Mindhunter, so.
You gotta watch Mindhunter.
Okay, yeah, that's one I'm going to say. Friends, who cares? Mindhunter, you need to check it out.
As much as you love murder, you would love Mindhunter.
I feel like we're all privy to a piece of information we shouldn't have known just now.
And then the last thing I'll talk about to move things along. Last thing I'll talk about is Reginald Hargreaves. In the comic, they reveal that he's an alien in like the first 3 pages.
Yeah.
So that's not
It's a bit of a
Surprise.
big
spoiler
reveal or a surprise. They reveal he's an alien right off the bat. So yeah, there are your characters. I do want to ask a question before we move on from the characters. So in the show, when Hargreaves introduces the Umbrella Academy to the world, he talks about he says something along the lines of in order of importance or something along that line. And in the comic, they also imply that the number system is like a ranking. Like he is saying,
Sure.
you know, this is the more important of the siblings. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you first, Blake. Do you agree with that? So do you agree that Space Boy, that Luther is the best, the most important, the...
Well, first I'll say this. I am ranked 3rd out of my siblings. There are 3 of us, so I'm top 3. I would also argue that the rankings are incorrect, as you would, based on the TV show. Now, again, I haven't read the comic. 5 should be 1, as far as like leadership, getting everybody together, trying to keep things coordinated. And Luther, who is 1, falls somewhere in the middle for me. Middling, if we're going ranked on importance. Bethany's giving me a thumbs down. Who's number 1, Bethany? Who's
Okay,
taking
so
the top
here's my
ranking?
thing, is I think it is a ranking system, but it's backwards from what you would think. He assigned points to who he thinks is the strongest. He gives number 1 the position of number 1 because he is the easiest to manipulate. He is not very smart. He's brute force. And, you know, that is why he gave him that title. But Vanya, he knows, is the strongest and the most dangerous. And then
Interesting.
6, obviously, with the squid
Ben.
stomach,
Yeah.
that also super dangerous. 5, this is where Laramy and I start to disagree, or it gets a little
Well,
muddy.
no, it's really after 5 that I disagree.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry.
Yeah.
5, then, 5, he can move around, and that's really cool, but also the time travel. 4 and 3 is where it gets a little muddy.
Because
but
I wouldn't
think
put Klaus over Allison.
No, but I think he knew Klaus's potential. So he knew that if Klaus would just stay sober and really hone his skills, eventually it would be very powerful to have basically a zombie army, just an infinite army behind him. Allison, yes, is extremely powerful because she says something and it just becomes true.
Yeah.
And that's a huge power.
Whereas,
but it also, it's easy to take that power away from her.
yeah, you just slash her across the throat.
Or just close her mouth.
All the throat slashing really makes sense after our latest revelation
Right.
on Laramy and murder.
And
so that really...
And then Diego is Diego. And then, like I said, Luther, I think, gets number 1 just because he is much easier to manipulate than the rest of them.
Oh, so that's another thing I actually want to ask you, Blake, since you're not as familiar with the comics. Are you aware of what Luther's powers are?
I am not. First of all, Bethany, great theory. I really actually buy into the theory. I like that.
Yeah.
I do not know what Luther's powers are. He, other than social awkwardness and an inability to read the room. Like, that's the only two things.
So actually,
it's my superpower also. So
yeah. Hey,
so actually, in the comic, his ability was that he was super strong, even before he got the gorilla. The gorilla body or the gorilla DNA. Like, that was his power. Was that he is super
he's
strong?
Just strong. Okay.
So then it's funny to me that you would do something like give him the gorilla body, which now makes you go, okay, but so now how much of it is his power versus how much of it is that he just has the strength of a gorilla? Like,
is he like gorilla body squared now?
Yeah.
Like, he's got double the gorilla strength?
I don't know.
If I was already really strong, I'd want to be put in a really fast body.
right.
Yeah. Like, if I'm going to carry over the strength,
Just put me in
like Usain Bolt's body or something.
Yeah.
Instead, he's in a body that has a hard time even getting into a car.
I know, right? Put me in like a cheetah body or something.
Get the most unhelpful body type. That sounds great.
We saw how well that worked in Wonder Woman 84. A cheetah body does everybody.
Good.
Sorry, we're not talking about that still too soon. My bad.
What seems to be the problem, pal?
There's just so much pain in the world, so many issues. I don't think I can bear it.
Hell, friendo, it sounds like you could use a dose of pop culture roulette.
Pop culture roulette? What's that? Some sort of pop culture themed podcast or something?
That's right, sonny boy. When hope seems far, dive into some PCR.
But I already get my entertainment news from Variety.
Huh, that's pretty good. If you're a chucklehead, PCR gives you news you need, condensed, unfiltered, and raw, from 3 nerds who know a little something about something.
Wow, okay, sign me up.
That's the spirit. Pop Culture Roulette. New episodes every Monday, available on all major podcast directories.
All right, so let's get into the moving panels, or at least some of the stuff we haven't talked about yet. So first off, I'm going to say that we've kind of already mentioned this in some of the character talk. The comic is so much weirder than the show.
And that's saying a lot, because the show's pretty weird.
Because the show's pretty weird, Bethany. You're correct.
Yeah. So the first issue number 1, is called The Day the Eiffel Tower Went Berserk. And it starts off, the very first panel. Yeah.
Those are words.
The very first panel is a wrestling match between a human pro wrestler and this space squid.
And there's like an allusion to the fact that because the human pro wrestler defeated the space squid, that is why all the babies were born.
It's because at that exact moment, this is the way the comic kind of, at that exact moment, this bionic elbow off the top rope, that was the exact moment that the 43 women all of a sudden became pregnant
and gave birth.
I was gonna try to say this and keep it family friendly. So the bionic elbow drop impregnated a worldwide population.
Absolutely.
Of women.
And then it never gets brought up again.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I was like, did John Cena drop this bionic
again?
Yep.
That's really weird. I don't even know. Normally I got something quippy or witty to say, but that is just straight weird.
It's weird. I will also point out that they talk about the babies being birthed, and then talks about how many of them were just abandoned.
And the 7 that he gets are the ones that survived.
Yeah, they imply that the 7 that are the umbrella cover are the only ones who survived.
It's dark.
That is that's a plot choice also to go along with that title.
Leave it to the guy who sings in an emo band.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty on brand for the lead singer of an emo band to get weird and get wild.
Well, I think also
that's still out there.
I think also by doing that, you take away the fact that if any of those children survived other than the 7, then you've got other superpowered people out there.
Yeah, that's going to be, I guess my next thing was, what would he have done if everyone had survived? He's adopting all, was it 43?
43, I think, was the number.
43?
I think that was the number.
He was just going to adopt all of them?
He was going to get as many as he could, is the way they kind of explain it.
They're Pokemon. You gotta catch them all.
Yeah, Bethany, what I'm talking about. You gotta catch them all.
Then in that first issue, they're kids, and instead of their big reveal just being stopping a bank robbery, as it is in the show, this time...
So much weirder.
Yeah, this time it's because the Eiffel Tower has gone crazy and is throwing people off of it, killing all these people. They then are trying to figure out how to stop it. Like I said, Klaus is trying to communicate with an engineer. And then it's this weird thing of Luther has a hunch, and then they bust through this room, and he says, as I suspected,
Zobot.
It's zombie robot Gustav Eiffel.
The man who built the Eiffel Tower is now using it as a spaceship. He is a zombie. He is a robot. He is a Zobot.
Oh, good cover on you. You saying zombie robot wrong earlier. Yeah.
First of all, I really thought you were going to say Luther burst the wall and said, "Oh yeah," like the Kool-Aid man.
No, that would have made sense.
That would have been. That, and also, none of this makes sense.
No, like I said, the comic is so much weirder, and that's just the first issue.
As educators, we tell kids, like, use your imagination, be creative, like, do something different. This is not what we're talking about, though. This is not what we're talking about, though.
Yeah, no, again, that's just the first issue, which they do reference in the show. In episode 8, when we get the flashback where Allison is telling her daughter, giving her daughter the bedtime story, and she asks to tell the story about the Umbrella Academy. After she finishes that story, she says, "I want to hear about the Eiffel Tower." And that's when Allison, nope, time to go to bed,
It's probably best not to talk about that story.
Yeah. But I mean, even later in the comics, they battled the Lincoln Memorial.
One of our greatest presidents.
But he's the bad guy, apparently.
Yeah.
His statue is evil.
Just the statue, right?
We're not talking about
the statue.
Okay, all right.
We're not
Just
getting
the statue.
canceled again. No more
Is
canceling.
there, from the human population after the ape population has already stopped listening to us now.
So
I don't even know what to say. I was interested in the comics at first, and now you're kind of like
still an interesting read.
Yeah.
They're just, you got to go in there with like this is going to be a quirky, weird thing that I'm going to read.
Yeah, see, I don't do drugs, Bethany, and I'm not sure I'd be able to get too far into this.
I don't like your implications.
Honestly, it's a quick read.
Now, I'm not saying y'all are doing them to read this. No. I'm saying I couldn't read it if I didn't have something to help me get through it.
It's not that bad, and it's a quick read. I mean, I got through all 6 issues probably just in a couple hours. I'm a slower reader, but yeah, just
maybe 2.5 Benadryl, and I can go ahead and check out what's happening in here.
But so talking about a little bit of the weirdness of the show, I wanted to ask this question: what are your thoughts about the dance numbers? So we have 2 of them. We've got the one in episode 1 where they're all in their own individual room dancing to the song that's playing. And then we've got the one between Luther and Allison where they turn...
In the day that wasn't.
Yeah, where they get the lights and they're in the ball gown and tux.
Well, she's in like a swing dress.
Or something,
he's in like a suit, but yeah.
So...
I think it's documented on this podcast before that I'm not a fan of musicals or dance
well then
numbers.
let me talk about it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to be Mr. Negative on this one and say why was it included. But go ahead, Bethany.
So I love it because I love at the beginning where they're dancing to I Think We're Alone Now, and it's all of them separate, which is kind of where they are in the show at that time, like on their character arc. They're all separated from each other, but they have something in common, and it's growing up in that house. And it's such a glimpse into each of their characters, like how they dance, it lets you get to know them pretty quickly, just watching how they dance and move around. They're all kind of weird, but it's relatable because it's like they've reverted back to when they're teens and they're in their, home bedroom and a song is playing and they're just kind of feeling it out. I love it. I also love the scene where Allison and Luther dance together because it's just so sweet. And that whole episode, it's kind of a fantasy in and of itself. And then it tops it off with this fantasy dance number, which I think is actually happening. But what we're seeing is what they have happening in their heads. And it's just beautiful. And it's a good song. It's upbeat. And then it cuts to the time travel, the day starts over, and none of it ever happened. I also think it plays into the fact that anytime there's a big fight scene throughout the entire series, it's choreographed. Like, all fight scenes are choreographed, but it syncs up to the music. They fight like they're dancing. And it makes it make sense to me. And I love it, and that's why you should love it too.
Thank you for listening to this.
This is my TED Talk.
Thank you for coming. I can certainly understand and appreciate that particular viewpoint on it. I'm not a fan of having music be the focal point of a plot.
It's not part of the plot though, really.
But it's a comic written by a musician.
Unless I'm watching Baby Driver, and then the music can be the plot point. But for this one, sorry, Bethany, I can't.
I will say I like the one in episode 1. I kind of agree with Bethany that it kind of shows their personality and all. And I love the shot when they
pan out
and they show all the rooms. And you even see Mom in the bottom left, and she's just like folding laundry or something.
It was just such a relatable moment.
I will say the one between Luther and Allison felt disconnected.
But that whole episode was disconnected because at the end of the day, it never happened.
But still,
maybe I just didn't dance in my room enough as a kid to feel connected to this.
Oh, I danced in my room.
That could be the thing.
And see, in the comic, the quote unquote intimate moment between Allison and Luther just happened on a rooftop.
Yeah. And she used her power on him.
See, I don't think she uses her power. I think she just says it. She does say, "I heard a rumor that you've wanted to kiss me since you were 8 years old."
Which
Skeezy.
And
sketchy.
And then they kiss.
Like that.
They kiss, and then you find out that Klaus is watching them. But I don't think she actually uses her power.
But you can never know. And I think that is the thing about her power is it becomes a point with the people in her life, they can't trust her because they don't know if she's ever used her power on them.
There it is.
And I think that plays into her overarching character is she has to not use it to prove that it's beautiful and I love it.
I will say that in the comics, it's more implied that when she uses her power, she's not just like brainwashing the individual, like she is altering reality.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's a
butterfly effect kind of thing. Like anything she changes is altering everything else.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
But let's hit some other things that are out of the comics. So the monocle, which they make a big deal out of at the beginning of the show, of how his monocle's missing, and then you find out Diego had it, and Diego just tosses it. So in the comic, his monocle is actually like a device. Like it allows the person wearing it to see things. See things about people or when Five's the one that actually puts it on in the comic, and he's overwhelmed by what he sees. It actually causes him to, like, his nose to bleed, and then he passes out because he sees how Hargreeves created Pogo. Like how he made an intelligent chimpanzee. Or actually, in the comic books, he made all chimpanzees intelligent. Because there's even a chimpanzee detective. Yeah. When the scene at the diner, when Five kills there's only 3 in the comic. Right. That happens in the comic, but in the comic, he's there with Pogo. But the cop that comes to investigate, there is no that I forgot the female detective's name.
Patch.
Yeah, Patch. There is no Patch in the comic. You have this male detective who has kind of that
same relationship,
kind of Batman Commissioner Gordon relationship.
Sure.
With but before they were on the same page, like he still says, you do things the wrong way, but then his partner is a chimpanzee. So in the comic, he has pretty much evolved the entire chimpanzee species.
It sounds like this comic is ape.
Chimpanzee.
They're in there monkeying around with everything.
I also want to point out, just because I think this would amaze Blake, it's not revealed until later in the comic, so it's not revealed in this storyline, but they do later find out that Five and Luther are actual biological twins.
Oh, what?
Yep.
Like from the same
mother.
Same mama.
So
and the dad, they all have the same dad, which is the bionic elbow into the squib.
The elbow.
But yeah, it is.
That is a sentence that carries a lot of metaphorical things in it.
Oh my God.
Do they find out?
Yes, they find out.
In the comic.
Yes, not in this story, not in the Apocalypse Suite story, but later they find out that they're biological twins.
Okay, so I'm going to be just straight up with you. I'm not going to read it. So how do they take the news of being twins?
It doesn't really affect.
A lot of information gets dumped in these comics, and then they just move on. Yeah. There's no emotional reaction.
What is that, Laramy? Is that a MacGuffin? Is that what that is?
No,
that's just something.
Yeah, that's not so much a MacGuffin. A MacGuffin would have been the monocle at the beginning of this. It was who stole the monocle, and so you're thinking
just something to drive.
It drives
the, plot,
the story,
right?
but then serves no purpose.
Gotcha. This just serves no purpose. Period.
Yeah.
You're twins. Okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Twins, Basil.
I thought we were twins the whole time because we were born on the same day and we're brothers, but cool.
I have a gorilla body.
And I time travel and I'm in the body of a 10-year-old.
I am 58 years old, actually.
So
I feel every morning.
The other thing is the Vietnam story from the show. There's no Vietnam in the comic until the Dallas storyline, which is the second story. And there is no David. He was made up entirely for the show. So,
and I'm glad he was. It was such a great plot. I thought it was such a great plot.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It might have been my favorite subplot from the first season.
And then when it goes into the second season, it just makes it that much more powerful. And it's just so heartbreaking, and it draws you closer to a character you already enjoyed watching because he was funny.
Right.
But now you feel for him.
100% agree.
No, in the comic, they do go to Vietnam, but it's Klaus, Luther, and Diego. All 3 of them actually fight in Vietnam.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, the only other thing I had was the ending, the actual battle with Vanya. At the end, again, Vanya is in full control of everything. She is, which she kind of is in the show as well. But it is during that battle that she slices Allison's throat. That doesn't happen separately. It's actually
as opposed to prior to the TV show.
Yeah, no, it actually happens in the battle. So you kind of look at it at that moment where in the show Allison wants to go talk to her, even though she can't talk. But as she's approaching, that's more of the moment that it happens in the comic. And then Luther grabs her and flies her off to the hospital. So they actually leave the battle.
With the levitating belt, Luther can't fly,
No,
right?
it's again with the levitating belt.
Right.
Then Klaus disappears right before the battle. Literally disappears. He steps through a portal.
And they think he's just like, I'm out.
Yeah, but then he shows back up dressed as their father. And he's also brought the conductor Stravinsky with him and this child orchestra. And I think the idea, although they don't really do it, but I think the idea is their music is supposed to counterbalance Vanya's music.
It as like they were
innocent and pure.
They were playing on her insecurities of just like Stravinsky is there to tell her like you're not good enough, you're not worth it. This group of children play better than you do. And it's supposed to distract her from what she's doing.
Well, I'm just saying because he also says that they're going to play, and I forgot the name of the song he's going to play, at a very particular tempo.
Yeah.
And that's where I get that it's supposed to be that music's supposed to counterbalance her music. And then you get the moment where Vanya is about to just end it all. And she gets... you do have where Diego attacks her. And she throws Diego just like she does in the show. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it is a surprise, Vanya gets shot in the back of the head. And you see...
There's a lot of back-of-the-brain explosions in this comic.
This one's for Pogo.
Well, so you remember in the show... They do show Allison standing behind her holding the gun.
Yep. But she fires up beside her ear to throw her off.
Yeah. But in the comic, she is shot in the back of the head, and it's 5.
Oh, sweet. Love him even more now. Yeah.
5 does it.
Dude, my favorite taking out my least favorite.
And then we get kind of the epilogue. We find out that they were able to get to Allison in time. But they do say in the comics she will never speak again.
Probably for the best.
Well, and then I think it's also an interesting play. She is before we knew that Vanya had powers, she was the only woman in the group that had powers, and her power was her voice, and they take it from her.
Yeah, but we agreed she's manipulative with it, though,
but
right?
We also agreed that she recognized it and was working her way into trying to fix it. But I think it's a deeper meaning.
I will say, though, in the comic, they don't have all of that where she became famous.
No, she's just a mom and had a husband and her daughter.
Yeah, and that's actually different, too. In the comic, her and her husband are separated because he had an affair.
Oh, I was like, wait a minute. She's married and was making out with Luther on the rooftop in the comic? Come on now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because she even talks about, like, Claire being with... Patrick and his girlfriend.
His new girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, they don't put it on her like they do in the show.
Yeah. It's like her fault in the show, yeah.
Nope.
All right. I'll allow it then.
And then they also reveal that even though Vanya had her brains blown out the back of her head, they say that the bullet missed
like a critical part of her brain.
But also...
I'm pretty sure, I'm not a math scientist, but I'm pretty sure the whole brain is critical.
But then they also...
It took 80%, but the 20% she needed is still there.
Well, they even talk about how they chose to leave the bullet in her head because they were afraid removing it would cause more damage. And then you don't see it in this comic, you see it later. Vanya...
It's like scooping it up off the stage.
Which is funny because in the comic, it's literal gray matter. Like, you don't see, like you looked up...
We can put her back together. We can fix this.
Like, you looked up the way Pogo's looked.
Right.
Hers is literally just, like, gray...
She literally becomes black and white.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So
your search history is just going to be so messed up.
My FBI agent's going to be like, what are you doing on this thing right now?
But she actually becomes paralyzed for the next story. So So you take the two females and you make one of them mute and the other one is paralyzed.
Yeah.
So there you go. As we watch Blake react to...
Right, Blake
Has
just,
she recovered from
Yes,
this?
and she recovered from that.
Blake just clutched his pearls.
Yeah, it is literally just gray ooze.
Yep.
Like just gray brain matter. And they're saying that it missed the critical parts are laid out around her, okay? Someone's just having to, there's like ladling this off the
scooped
stage.
it up and tucked it back in.
It's okay. It's okay. Y'all have seen what The Office, right?
Yeah.
When Kevin puts the turtle back
chili.
together. Yeah. That's what I'd imagine. And then I fixed him again.
Yeah. All right, let's get into bag it, stack it, or trade
I was
it.
thinking when he spills the chili and he's trying to...
The chili's the same
Trying
thing.
to scoop
Just
it all back
sliding
in.
it with the file folder.
Yeah. All right, let's get into bag it, stack it, or trade it. So, Blake, I will let you speak first. So we're just talking about season 1.
Yeah, just season 1. Based on this podcast episode, I'd bag it. This has been fantastic. But since I can't include that, I'm just gonna stack it. It's good. Again, I watched it when it first came out. I rewatched it this past week. I hadn't watched it in between, so it's one of those where I feel like you kind of just come back to it every so often to check it out and see if you missed anything the first time. But it's not really one I'm gonna want to preserve. So yeah, I'm just gonna stack it and leave it at that.
Yeah, Bethany?
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say stack it. I think it's a really good introduction to the characters. Like I said, it's a pretty predictable plot for the most part. Like, you know how it's all going to turn out at the end for the most part, or you know how a situation's going to turn out. But it was a great way of introducing these characters. I think season 2 is a much more interesting season.
Right.
And for that reason, I'm going to say this season is a stack it.
So based off a couple of things y'all both just said, I will point out that in the comic, although there is no Cha-Cha and Hazel, there is Agnes, the waitress.
Agnes is in the comic.
So she is in this story of the comic. You talked about seeing stuff that you didn't notice. There are 2 things that I noticed on my second watch. I did just like you, Blake. I watched it that first time, and then I saw it this past week. And those are the only 2 times I watched it. But I did notice on this viewing 2 things that I didn't remember from the first viewing. One was as Vanya goes through the house and she walks into each room and she sees, when they were kids and them telling her, you got to have a partner, or
you got to have powers.
Yeah, you got to have powers, or
they tell her to get out.
All that stuff. She does not ever see 5. And part of me really wants to go a little deeper into that. Like, does that mean she has no ill feelings about 5?
He wasn't there during most of her torment.
Yeah,
So I kind of wish they had played on that a little bit more. Then the other thing I noticed, which was a small little thing, was that as the apocalypse is happening and everybody's getting wiped out, first off, you want to talk about kind of like your MacGuffin, the detective getting the envelope with Hazel and Cha-Cha's guns that are supposed to, doesn't matter.
Clear Diego.
Doesn't matter.
World
Doesn't
is
matter.
ending. Who cares?
And then Hazel and Agnes, I did not notice this the first time, but they actually activate the suitcase and they go through a time portal and they're not killed.
Yep.
Bethany then reminded me that Hazel pops up in season 2, where he has lived his life with Agnes and all that. I just forgot that that's how it happened. But
I just love their little love story. It is so cute.
Yep.
It's just so wholesome and sweet. They just want to travel the world looking at birds.
It's like then he time travels and murders a bunch of people apparently as Edmund Kemper. So
Yeah, there is that.
full circle there for the Netflix shows.
yeah. But ultimately, I'm actually going to say bag it.
Okay.
So I think, like we've talked about, I think this is a great,
Origin story.
not just an origin story, but I think it's a great character study for each of these characters. Each of these characters have some sort of development. Luther probably the least,
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
Yep.
But Diego even has the moment where he has the chance to kill Cha-Cha, and then because of what 5 said to him about Patch, he chooses not to. to honor his friend. And then, Klaus, we've already talked about his character development. Allison, she has the realization that...
Gosh, her story in season 2, it's so interesting.
I was going to say, we're going to jump the shark here. I would bag season 2.
Absolutely.
Bethany would agree with me on that. But yeah, another time.
And I mean, Ben isn't really allowed to have a character development.
He's dead.
But to have...
His character's developed as much as it's going to develop.
Although he does develop in season 2. He gets that girl that he loves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But also, I think with him and Klaus and their powers kind of uniting, and you get to have that moment where he
gets to help at the end.
Show up at the end.
They work in together, yeah.
I think that was a good moment. And of course, Vanya definitely has character development. But
not for the better.
No. Right. Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
For this season,
her outfits.
Season 2.
Her outfit's awesome.
Season 2's a little bit better. Season 1, her development just goes down. It's like she starts off the season and she's like, you know what? I am who I am. My siblings are who they are, but that is besides the point. We're just going to live my life. And she just gets sucked into that self-doubt portal, and it's not interesting. And it's annoying. Actually,
I'm still gonna stick with my Baggett.
I agree with
so.
I mean, I don't. But
I was like, wait a minute.
No, I actually
you can't go
don't.
back now.
I don't. I went with Stackett, but yes. I understand your reasoning.
Yeah, I can understand the Baggett.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. We of course will tackle the other seasons, season 2, season 3, and then maybe the season 4 that's supposed to come out and end the series. We know how things sometimes work out with Netflix, where they will just cancel something just because they want to. But I have heard season 4 is supposed to be getting filmed, and it's just the writer's strike has put a halt to that. So we shall see. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up there. Any last words either one of you have?
It was a blast, as always.
I heard a rumor that this was the best episode.
Okay. Well, fingers crossed. Let's see what the numbers look like. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Rate and review the show. Show us that love. We'd appreciate it. But we're going to end things now. So for Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Don't rank your children.
It's just a bad idea.
Yeah, don't do it.
And if you're going to do it, don't tell them.
Keep it in a journal.